My apologies to everybody watching these videos for the last few weeks, but as you can tell, the background is so bright that this face just turns into a dark shadow. But the words have light, and so try to just listen, if not watch. This is Christmas week leading up to it, and it's really fascinating to watch how Christmas plays out in our culture. Clearly the messages of Christmas are lost, and people talk about that regularly in sermons and on editorials. You know, as this becomes a holiday of trying to show people how much you love them by giving them stuff, which you can't afford, usually. And the pain of it, the discomfort of it, the struggle, not realizing, not knowing how to really show people that you care about them. How do you show people you love them in a culture that says the more you give, the more that you care? When we all know that's not true. It's a very painful period. And what is it that we're really celebrating during all of this? And you know, honestly, what we're celebrating is the birth of hope. The birth of hope that the real content of our life will shine through all of the pain and struggle of life. And, you know, the hope that seems to be at the core of this is that there's the birth of something in our lives, or in the content of life itself, that promises something rather remarkable, which is that we are not only the body or the mind, that somehow or another we are part of eternity, that we go on in some form. And boy, oh boy, is that an important thing to know or to believe in. Because it really changes how you live your life. And, you know, the idea of Christ coming into the world to teach us this, and the importance of his birth and the message, is remarkable, whether you're Christian or not Christian. The idea that universal consciousness takes form to try to speak to us directly about the possibility of eternal being, and all the other messages that come along with it. I mean, there are endless messages. But the profound message really is your life leads towards something, and that you have a value in being here, and that value tends to be obscured in some very fundamental way, and that with some kind of work or belief system you can find your way back to the value of your existence. What must have been very frustrating for Jesus, and what must be very frustrating for everyone who teaches, is to look at the world around you and the people around you, and to see what an unbelievable tangled mess everybody's life has become. Unbelievable tangles, knottedness. Not only is there no sense of value, there's no sense of purpose, there's no sense of joy beyond certain pleasures, minuscule pleasures, momentary glimpses of happiness. Most lives are really messed up. And you look at these lives and all you want to do is help the unraveling, the unknotting that you see around you. And, it's hard enough to do in your own life, let alone to actually reach out and help pull the knots apart. And there is something where you sometimes just say, wow, this is not possible. These knots are really intense. And the situation is hopeless. Just hopeless. And then the message of hope comes back. You go, why is this message so powerful and dominant in our lives that we can undo the knots that tie people up in their own extraordinarily uncomfortable states? And what arises for me every day is the miracle that can be done. That every person can be unknotted. In some religions you call it saved. That you can be brought back into a state of release, of openness, of simplicity, where all of the stuff that keeps you in imbalance and disharmony and discomfort and suffering and all the stuff that you go through, you can undo it. You can do the old Gordian knot thing, which is slash right through the thing itself and break it apart. But that is not a good, easy state to find yourself in. It's so unfamiliar. It's so completely other to let go of all of what you were. It takes a long time to accommodate that experience. And a lot of people don't. They just end up in madness of some sort. So the idea is loosen the knot. Loosen the space in your brain that has to begin to undo the knot. Any one of you as a child who discovers when you fight with a knot really hard, it just gets tighter. You all know that. And then something in most of us at one point or another learns, relax. Just relax. Okay, this little part right here. This little part right there. And slowly, this knot unravels. It tends to be a light touch that does it. It tends to be a surrendered state. And it's really a good way to learn surrender, because anyone who's untied a knot knows exactly what that feels like. You understand the frustration and the letting go of that. As you let go of the frustration, you succeed. When you engage that frustration, you fail. You get angry. You give the shoe to someone else and say, can you undo this? But unfortunately, we're kind of in it on our own. We all have to untie the knot, or the knots in our life. And when it feels hopeless for you, there comes into the world a teaching of hope. It can be done. It really can be done. But then what gets really, really frustrating is looking at people who are living a hopeless life, who simply haven't gotten the message. They don't know that they can unravel it, or if they do get the message, they don't believe it or they don't try. And people come here looking for help, and help exists. Part of what this class does is it helps to create the stillness that allows you to go in and begin the work. It creates the place that allows you to go, I can do this, or even in a bigger sense, it can be done. What's so interesting to me is to watch the frustration and the resistance to doing this. How many people just get so tight inside that they, one, don't believe it's possible, and two, just give up on trying altogether. That's not a great reaction for a lot of reasons. One is you're going to suffer your entire life, and who knows what comes afterward other than this promise that you go on, but how do you go on? That's where all these religions differ. Some tell you you either go to heaven or you go to eternal hell. I don't believe Jesus would have said either of those things, to be honest. What you discover is that the kingdom of heaven is within. And that's really something of a major discovery. When you go inside, you, right now, right here, entering in through the heart, which is, I think, the easiest space to go through, you enter into this place of stillness, and suddenly, and you discover it's there right this second. There is this place inside. There's this place inside that is so relieved, so released from the knottedness of your life, you can't even believe it. You just go in there and you go, well, what's that? There are all these knots all around me, but I don't care. I'm completely tied up, but who gives a crap? It's like, this is so beautiful. And it's right here, in me, now. If you start living in that space more and more and more and more, you live independent of the knot. In other words, this knotted figure that you think you are becomes about that big, and you become like this. If you can't see, it's big. Really, really big. You become that, or recognize that's what you are, and all of this knottedness really isn't all that important. And the more you live in the bigness, the knottedness of you really starts not to get unraveled, just in its not mattering, to kind of disappear as a concern. You live with it and in spite of it. You even embrace it in a way as part of the reality of life. And then it does whatever it needs to do. It goes away, it doesn't go away, it doesn't matter. You are, in your bigness, free of all this. You find the kingdom of heaven within. When you die, according to the various religions, you either find that, or you find yourself so locked up in the knottedness that death itself is like entering into permanent knottedness, which is not fun. Some religions say you have another life or multiple lives. You know, some give you only one chance, and some don't talk about it at all, because who knows? You know, who knows? But here's what we do know. You're here, and your life probably, on some level, sucks. It's kind of not working, it's uncomfortable, the knots are there, the discomforts are there, and you have this existential fear, probably, of annihilation, of not being around for long or forever, which is real, because you won't be. Every one of you, guaranteed, will not be here forever, in the sense that you are right now. So, what do you do with this knowledge? Well, you know, it's interesting for me, because I went to Rudy as a teacher, and Rudy had a kind of two-pronged attack. One is, fix your life, deal with the knots, and two was, transcend the knots. And they seem to be, in a way, antithetical, but they're not. They're part of a process, because the more you undo the knots, the more you are led to this state of unknottedness itself. You're led to a state where you're just free. And so you work on it from two directions. One, the knot. Two, not caring. Going deep. Finding this place where it doesn't matter. You need, in a sense, to do both. As we approach Christmas, what I see around me is so many people getting more knotted than ever around this celebration of hope and unknottedness. What is going on exactly? Why are we creating such tension around the idea of sharing with each other this idea of love and hope? Why is it becoming an expression of giving stuff? I sound like every preacher in America today, talking the same story, but it's really important. My daughter-in-law, Evan, said to me, let's give Talia less. Let's give her less. And my instinct is to give more. This is the first year we've ever decided not to give each other more than one gift. Because I grew up with thousands of gifts under the tree. We didn't have a tree, but we had thousands of gifts for Christmas. God knows why we didn't have a tree, because I always loved trees. But we had presents. And my dad, that was his way of saying, I love you, give me stuff. He had no way of giving me love directly. He didn't know how, really, but he knew how to give me stuff. And my mother, too. And they created this fantasy land of joy around Christmas. And I grew up really loving it. And I tried to transmit that to my kids, who loved it. And I tried to transmit it to Talia, who just found herself getting overwhelmed by the enormity of stuff that she was given. And her mother said, enough, enough. And this enough moment has been really powerful for me. Because this idea that less is more helps you to start to discover, what do you really give to each other? What do you really give? What do you transmit? And I think the best thing for us all to find is how to give each other content. The content of ourself, the love that we have to share with each other, to transmit that on Christmas morning or during these holidays, or whenever you find an opportunity to transmit it. This is the time for that. This is the time that we're reminded that there was the birth of a man who came in the world to say that, and how his birth became the occasion for the exact opposite is the nature of the world. The misunderstanding of cultural life, of societal life. What we're here to share is so simple and is so enlivening and so beautiful. It's the hug of connectivity, that we truly do love each other. Or if we don't really love each other, that what to do about that? What to do about the fact that you don't love anybody? Or so few people. The knowledge of that is a gift. The knowledge of that you are failing on that level, that you don't love hardly anybody, including yourself. What do you do about that? This is the season to begin to look at it. Figure it out. Are you incapable of love? No. No. The promise of this season is you are born out of love. You are a manifestation of love. You are a creature of love. Even if your parents didn't love each other. Even if your parents didn't like each other. The space from which you arose was love itself. Because it brings you into this space that is a manifestation of love, truly. With all of its drama, with all of its tension, with all of its knottedness, this world is love made manifest. And when you discover that, you become like two young lovers, The world disappears, all you see is each other. It's the most beautiful thing imaginable. When your children are born, when your grandchildren are born, when you meet the person you want to share yourself with, all of that starts to show itself. A best friend can show it to you, So many things can show it to you. A lot of us don't see it very much. We don't see it because we've been so oppressed by the lack of love, which in a certain sense is an expression of love. The lack of love is almost as important as love itself, because it's the message that tells you something is missing. It sends you on the search. It sends you out into the world of love looking for it. And you look for it in pain, you look for it in terrible expressions of sadness and disappointment. But all I can tell you, if you can get unknotted enough to see the possibility, if you can get unknotted enough to go to a meditation class or a yoga class or to a church or to a synagogue or to a mosque or something, where you say, please help me, there is this wild message of hope that it can happen. It can happen, and it will happen. It does happen. You discover that the thing which is at the very center of your biological self is this universe of love. It's really in you. It terrifies most people because it seems to be so rejected by life. But what you want to find out is your love rejected is not an absence of love. It's just that it's rejected by other people's knottedness. You have that inside. And if you sit still long enough, you will fix the problem. If you sit still, this thing, I promise you, will go, trust me, it's so accessible. It's accessible because it's your core being. You are love itself. And if that doesn't sound real and natural to you, it's just a sign of how obstructed you are. All I want to do, all anyone who teaches or preaches wants to do, is help you relax enough to find that self. And this is the season that reminds you that it's there. And in all of our imperfect ways of giving and receiving, we get a little glimpse of it. But you want more than a glimpse. You want it, you really want it as your very being. You want to know that it's the core of you. That's what you're here for. And it is the core of you. It is. So really all I can do is remind you that we have a practice. If you sit every day, literally every day, you develop a muscle system that allows you to overcome your resistance, sit through the darkness of your soul, look at the struggle and the brutal day-to-day pain of living, and discover that there's beauty in it and there's love in it and that it exists inside you. That's the practice. If you do it every day, I promise you, you'll know what I'm talking about. There are billions of ways to get there. The hardest thing to see is that almost nobody's trying, or trying seriously enough to arrive. So dedicate yourself. Use this season to dedicate yourself to the renewal of your effort, to open, sit still, ask for help, to surrender, meaning to let go of all of your resistance, all of your inertia, all of your frustration, all of your anger, all of your sadness, all of your disappointment. Just let go of it for 10 seconds and see what's there. And I promise you, you'll find something. Again, we celebrate worldwide a season of hope. And it doesn't have to be seasonal. It can be every morning you sit down. It can be every minute of your life. It can be every second of your life. It's never not there. The only thing that's not there is you. So bring yourself to the table. Bring yourself to the practice. Make yourself available to finding the joy inside yourself. It's worth it. It's worth it. I said last week there would be a class again next week, but there won't be with me here. There will be, as I've said multiple times, other people sitting in this spot, and people who sit here are reflections of everything that's being said now. If you sit here, it's because there's something that moves through you. It doesn't mean you're a perfect, unknotted soul. It just means you have been given permission to express this great joy and love inside yourself in spite of all of your stuff, all of your drama. And that helps you break through. Being a teacher helps you break through. So, for all of you who want to continue, this class will be going on. I will be in Seattle for much of the next year, but I will come back every opportunity I can, and hope to see you all when I'm here. And you know, there's a big effort made to have this every Sunday. It's a big effort. We keep this house for it in many ways. We keep this going even though we're not around. And we keep it going because the biggest gift I've ever been given in my life was from my teacher, Rudy. And, you know, the gift is to share this and to let it be shared, and to have it a space available for it to be shared is really important to me. So we're going to keep this going. You know, when I'm not here, Jackie is in charge. If you have any questions, you should get a hold of Jackie. And you know, just know this place is available Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. And if you need a place to go to remember who you are, come. In the meantime, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And, you know, I really love you guys. And, you know, really grateful I share my life with you. And I'm very grateful that you all make the effort to be here. Lots of love.